It's so great to see so many young basketball players in the room, and I think on all 13 teams, I think all players could say that they have that one special friend, that one special teammate that they desire to be like, they find admirable, they think their skills, their determination at the sport to get better, it really inspires them, and they're considered a role model to that person. And it could be someone that if you had a bad practice or a bad shift, you come off and you talk to that person, and just even a look down the bench and you see them, and they can really lift your spirits. Or maybe a bad mark on a test and a nice little conversation before practice and with that person, that one special teammate, and suddenly everything's okay. And we're lucky that we have someone really special on our team, and there's a role model that I consider my best friend, and I'm lucky enough to introduce her this morning. And her name is Jane Boyle. And Jane has overcome a knee injury last year, and we can't believe the work that she's put in, the determination over the summer to come back fully rehabbed, had a tremendous season. One of our key players, she was recently awarded the Red and Black Award at our awards banquet on Tuesday night. That award goes to someone with the grit and the passion and the team desire and the spirit of being a Red. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jane Boyle.
I just want to say thanks to Megan. It's been an absolute blast playing with you for the past 4 years, and I know you're going to be an amazing firefighter. All right, hi everyone. I just want to start off by saying how special it is for me to be standing up here this morning. I can remember my first breakfast 5 years ago and not really knowing anyone other than my teammates and maybe a few familiar faces here and there. Now though, I recognize almost everyone in this room and have developed a lot of special relationships coaching and hanging out with the younger teams here. When I was asked to do this speech a few months ago by Speedy, I said yes right away. I honestly have no idea why I said yes so fast, because for the past 5 years, I have successfully avoided almost every single kinesiology class that has a presentation of any kind. For some reason, though, the thought of getting up here and sharing my story didn't scare me as much as I thought it would. It took me a while to decide what I want to talk about this morning, because a lot can happen in 5 years. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted to share all of it, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. The past few weeks, I've been asked by my friends and family to describe my 5 years, and my answer is always the same. I tell them that it's been the best roller coaster ride I've ever been on. Rewind 5 years ago, and I was a shy 18-year-old girl from Halifax on her way to UNB for her first year of university basketball. To say I was nervous was a huge understatement. I can vividly remember turning into campus for residence move-in day and seeing a sea of older students with signs and horns making all kinds of noise. My immediate reaction to this was to say, "Dad, please turn the car around." They ignored me and continued to drive up to the Joy Kid residence. Looking back, my first year was full of positive experiences. It was my first time being away from home, and I made so many new friendships on and off the court that I will hold on to forever. I don't think I spoke more than 2 to 3 words for the first few months on the team, but nonetheless, they welcomed me into their family with open arms. I left for the summer itching to get better and couldn't wait to be back out there on the court with my family. My second year was one to remember. We hosted nationals that year, and it was an experience like no other. We played our first game in front of a sold-out crowd, and I remember thinking to myself, as I looked around the crowd, seeing so many friends and family, that this is something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Until you've experienced something like that, it's hard to put it back into words. The amount of energy and electricity that was going through the crowd helped push us to a very close game with McGill, who was the #1 seed. After the season was done, I was so fired up that all I wanted to do was get back into the gym and keep improving until next September. I knew I had so much more in my tank to give. I decided to make that summer all about basketball. It became my obsession, and every choice and decision I made that summer revolved around basketball. You know that quote that says, if you want to be successful as much as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful? Well, that was my mindset. A typical day for me that summer was to get up before work and do my weights. Then after work, I had an on-court session for an hour, and then I would go straight to a 2-hour scrimmage. It got to the point where if my family was going to my cottage for the weekend, just for 2 days, I wouldn't go with them because I felt too guilty. It was really starting to affect my mental health along with my decision-making. At the time, though, I had no idea. I was still just as fired up for the next season as I'd always been. When it was time to head back to school for my 3rd year, I couldn't wait. I felt as though I did everything I could have and more, and I was so excited to have a great year. September started off really well. I was having fun, but I also felt quicker, faster, and stronger. It wasn't until mid-October that I started feeling more tired than usual and just off in general. I was getting enough sleep and eating well, but something just didn't feel right in my body. I remember talking to my parents about it and even to my friends, but I found it really hard to explain, especially when my only symptom at the time was just feeling really tired. Then late October hit and I started to feel really sick. My throat was practically swollen shut and I couldn't lift my head up by myself. Every day, it progressively got worse, and before I knew it, I had found out that I had mono and that I was going to be sidelined for the next 4 to 7 weeks. I basically looked like a zombie from The Walking Dead, and I even tried to avoid looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't know this at the time, but when you have mono, you basically just have to wait for your body to get better on its own, which can take a long time. Luckily, though, I was only sick for about 2 weeks and then started to feel more and more like myself as the days went on. All I really cared about was getting back onto the court so I could play a second semester. I had weekly visits with our team doctor, and every time I was able to do a little more than the week before. The recommended waiting period is about 5 to 7 weeks, but I came back just after 4. My body felt ready and fully back to normal, but unknowingly to me, I wasn't prepared mentally. At my first practice back, we were doing a simple transition drill. I was running up the sideline and caught the ball, took one dribble, and completely destroyed my ankle. And that injury took a huge toll on me. I was on crutches for almost 2 weeks, and it took another 2 to 3 weeks to fully heal. I remember feeling so weak and just completely drained all the time. After rehabbing for weeks, I finally got back onto the court, but I wasn't the same. I had lost all of my confidence, and it felt like I couldn't do any of the things I was doing before getting sick and injured. I was terrified to step onto the court, and I was constantly feeling so much pressure that I wasn't measuring up to the player I should be at this point. I'd had such high expectations for the year, and when I didn't reach any of my goals that I'd set the summer before, I found myself in a pretty dark place. Basketball was everything to me, and it felt as though the game itself was starting to turn on me. That summer was a hard one. I thought that since I had a little break from basketball, that I would begin to feel like myself again, but I didn't. I wasn't enjoying my workouts like I used to, and I didn't love it like I used to. I started to feel like an empty version of myself. I even remember asking myself if I wanted to keep playing, because if it was going to make me feel like this, then I definitely didn't want to keep putting myself through that. That being said, I decided to play my 4th year and focus on having fun and enjoying it as much as possible. Then the unthinkable happened. My 5th practice into the season, I tore my ACL and lateral meniscus. I remember just lying on the ground crying and being like, why is this happening? I didn't understand any of it. I was driving to the net, which I had done so many times in my life, so why was this time so different? I think about that moment a lot. I don't remember much of that day, but I remember knowing that I was going to be sidelined for quite a while. The next few months were a whirlwind of emotions. There were a lot of tears for the first bit, but then each day got a little bit easier. Being on the sideline actually gave me that mental break that I didn't even know I needed. I no longer felt this immense amount of pressure on the court, and I was able to fully focus on my rehab. I went to physio 3 to 4 times a week, and I was constantly seeing improvements, and those small victories were huge for me. I started feeling good about myself again, and I was slowly getting my confidence back. It was at a physio session when something inside of me switched, and I knew I wanted to give basketball another chance. I started making small goals after my surgery, which was in late January. I knew I wanted to come back and play in September, and I wanted to be more ready than I'd ever been. So each week, I would write down what I was doing at physio and in the weight room and try to keep improving as the weeks went by. I also knew that I wanted to be back playing in 6 months. Having these goals gave me all kinds of confidence in myself, and I was starting to see just how much I was capable of accomplishing. When September finally rolled around, I was so excited. I hadn't felt this way about basketball in a while, and I couldn't wait to get started. I felt strong mentally and physically, I felt confident, but most importantly, I was happy. It's hard for me to put into words my first time stepping onto the court during the Helen Campbell tournament. It felt as though my love for the game was back in full force, and I was just so happy to be back out there playing the game that I'd loved for so many years. It was a very special moment for me that I'll hold on to for a very long time. Looking back on my 5 years at UMB, there were some amazing ups that I will remember forever, and there were also some amazing downs that I will also remember forever. The ups and downs that I went through have shaped me into the person I am today. I wouldn't trade any of the downs that I faced throughout the last few years. Each and every one taught me that everything isn't always going to work out exactly how you planned, and that's more than okay. The most important piece is being able to overcome those downs and come out a better and stronger version of yourself. Being a student athlete is hard, and sometimes it takes a few different paths to get to where you want to go, but that doesn't make it any less worth it. I've been so lucky to have had an amazing support system throughout my time here at UMB. Speedy was always in my corner and never gave up on me, which meant more to me than he'll ever know. My teammates were always there and never made me feel like I was alone through any of it, and my family never stopped believing in me. You get to be the creator of your own story, whatever that may be. I know that whenever anyone asks me to describe my experience, I will always say that it was the best roller coaster ride I've ever been on. Thanks.
So I don't really enjoy getting up here in front of this many people because I think there are a lot of people in this room you'd rather listen to more than me. Similarly, Jane has had a tough act to follow. The women's basketball student athletes we've had give the speeches the last few years have done a fantastic job. And that's why I asked you, Jane, because I knew you would do a fantastic job. So Jane, I want to thank you for 5 amazing years. You played the game the right way. You played the game with enthusiasm. And coaches love wins. Players love wins as well. But seeing you on the court this year, not just on the court, but having such an amazing year, it's one of the highlights I've had in recent memory. So congratulations and thanks for everything.